In this lesson, I will demonstrate how you can customize the AutoCAD user environment. The first thing I'd like to draw your attention to is the command line. As you know by now, the command line is where we type in our commands, and we always pay attention to it to see which options are available to us. Well, you can do a few things with this command line. For example, you can move it around. The command line has a series of dots over here on the left side of it, and if you click and drag on those dots, you are free to move this command line around. So if you'd like it to be at the top of your screen, you can do that, or again, you can just leave it back at the bottom where it is by default. I also want to show you that if you continue dragging it down, it will dock. So if I click and drag and let it go, I can see it actually docks the command line in here. And this is the way older versions of AutoCAD actually came out of the box. You can also drag these dots and dock them at the top of your screen. Here you can see mine jumped all the way to the top, which I don't like, so I'm going to drag it back out onto my screen. A lot of times when people are messing around with the command line, it's easy to accidentally close it by clicking on this X box. Now fortunately, AutoCAD is set to ask you, are you sure you want to do that? And it gives you a shortcut of how you can bring it back, which is Control 9. But if I go ahead and click yes and it's gone, and I forget the Control 9 shortcut, the easy way to get your command line back is to just simply type in command line, all one word. Now granted, as you're typing, you can't actually see it. But if you trust that you've got command line, or if you've got dynamic turned on, as I do right now, when I type in command line, I can see the autocomplete there, but when I press enter, my command line is back. So let me drag this back down here and keep it on the bottom. An important keyboard shortcut that I want to point out as well is the F2 keyboard shortcut. When you press F2, it brings up your AutoCAD text window and shows you the things that you've done recently, and you can scroll up and down to go back and view things that you've done since you've opened up this drawing. I do want to point out this isn't a complete history of the drawing. This only shows you everything that has happened since the drawing was opened today. And you can press F2 to toggle that back as well. The next thing I want to call your attention to are the status bar icons. And these have changed quite a bit in AutoCAD 2015. And basically the first thing to note is that if something is blue, that means that it's turned on. So if I were to look at my screen, I can see that the grid is turned on right now. You can see that out here on my screen. If I click the button to turn it off, my grid goes away. I can see that polar tracking is on, which you will learn more about later. And I can see that object snap tracking and object snaps are on. And then I can also see some annotation scale information as well, which again we'll discuss at a later point in time. And then there's just some information about the hardware acceleration, which deals with my video card, nothing we need to worry about at this point. If there's any buttons on here that I want to see that are not currently displayed, I can show them by clicking this last button down here on the status bar, the customization button. When I click on this one, I get a list of all the things that I could possibly show in the status bar. Unfortunately, you can't see those very well, so I'm actually going to resize my screen here a little bit. Try this again, and hopefully you can see my menu a little better now. So now you can see that there's check marks next to all the things that are currently displayed down there on my status bar. And if there's something that I want to see but is not currently showing, I can click on it. So for example, here's dynamic input. When I click on dynamic input, I now see that button showing up on screen. And then if there's something there that I don't want, I can certainly turn those off as well. So the graphics performance that I mentioned we're not going to deal with, I could go ahead and click that check to turn it off, and that button is gone. So definitely I would recommend customizing this to use the buttons that you use most frequently. The other thing that I would mention as well, that in this class you will start to use these functions as you learn them. So I would recommend at the beginning that you turn these off, and then as we learn some of these features, you will turn them on. And then that way when you're drawing with coordinates, for example, those things won't get in the way. Now AutoCAD also gives you many ways that you can customize the color and the look and display of the user environment. This is purely an optional thing. I will discuss with you a few of the things that I do so that you'll understand why in some of my videos I, for example, have a yellow command line. And you can certainly change those things if you want. And if not, that's great too. So where I'm going to go first of all is the options dialog box. To get to the Options dialog box, you just right-click anywhere on your blank drawing screen, and it's typically the last item in your pop-up menu. It will bring up the Options dialog box, which has several tabs across the top, and the one I'm dealing with right now is going to be Display. On the Display tab, I can choose the Colors button. And this shows me all the possible things that I can change. As you can see, there's multiple categories. Each category has multiple things that you can change. The first thing I like to change personally is my background color. Now, Autodesk has created a background color that's almost but not quite black. And that is so that when you have white lines on top of this background, it's not a high contrast and it's better for eye strain. So if you're staring at AutoCAD 8 hours a day, that's definitely a great background. Personally, as an instructor, I like to use the solid black background because it presents better. So I'm going to choose the solid black. Again, you don't have to choose that. If you prefer black lines on a white background, you can choose white and apply and close, and you can see the change in my background here. Once more, I'm going to go back to colors and switch my background to black. Another thing that I like to change is my command line. Again, I stress how important the command line is and how you should always look at your command line and see what options are available. To help me do that, I'm going to choose a color that stands out. So I'm going to choose my command line category, and my command history background I'm going to change to yellow, and my active prompt background I'm going to choose to yellow. Now you can choose any color that you want, but you obviously want a high contrast, so if you choose a dark background, make sure that you choose a light colored text. I'm going to go ahead and actually change one more thing. I also like to change my crosshairs. So by default your crosshairs are white, which is great. I like to make mine yellow. Again, that's just something that helps it show up better on screen in my classrooms and hopefully in these videos as well. So I'll go ahead and choose apply and close there. And then you can see definitely the color change of the background, my yellow command line as well as the black background. One other thing I like to do in my classroom as well as in these videos is I like to increase the font size of my command line. That way you can see what I'm typing a little better. Now again, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this for you, but I just want you to see how I do this. So I click on the fonts button and I'm just going to choose a size 12 font instead of a size 10 font. Apply and close, and now my text has gotten larger there. A couple other things that I like to change. I'll show you my crosshairs by clicking OK. They're now yellow, and you can see that little box in the middle. That's called a pick box, and I like to increase the size of that just a little bit. It makes it a little easier for me to select lines. Again, it also presents better, and then I also like to make my crosshairs a little bigger as well. So once more, to do that, back to the Options dialog box through my right click. And then I'm going to click on the Selection tab to increase my pick box size. I'm not going to increase it a whole bunch, just a little bit. And then actually back on the Display tab where I was previously, this is where I can actually increase my crosshair size as well. And I'll bump that up maybe to 15. I'll click OK. And now you can see my crosshairs much easier for my presentations. Again, would I use that every day if I'm drafting? Probably not. I would probably leave it the default size, but I just want to increase the size of mine to call your attention to it more easily. In addition to those few things that I talked about, there are many more settings that you can change in the Options dialog box. You can customize all sorts of colors, but for now I'm just going to keep it here and let you recognize that there's other things you can change. If you want to go in there and toy around with it, feel free. But once again, that is how you can customize your user interface in AutoCAD.